Hi everyone, it's Robin. Thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to be scrapbooking voicing over about a picture I scrapbooked. It's a picture of my great-great-aunt Blanche, and she was the woman that raised my grandmother, and that story is to come. But I was going through some old photos, and I wanted to do kind of a heritage layout with this kit. This is this May Scraptastic kit. It's called The Story I Heard. And I absolutely love this kit, but I was like, what am I going to do with some of these old, you know, rotary telephones and things? And I decided to start looking through some older photographs, and I came across this one, and I've been wanting to scrapbook it for a while. And I actually tried a couple of times, but I just couldn't find any papers that I really, really liked, and this kit was just perfect. Now, I did this layout 2 weeks ago. It was the day before I went to my cousin's wedding in California. My husband and I flew out for that. So I just felt like scrapbooking a bit, and I went down and made this page, and I'm really, really happy with it. I'm using some doilies that Kathy had sent me, and I am just showing you some of the papers I've chosen. That was from the Now and Then collection, and this one is called Dialed Up by Pink Paisley. And then I used this gorgeous blue color. It's called Rain, I believe. And then this basil cardstock is in blank check. And one side is shimmery and the other side is flat, so that's what I'm showing you right there. But I was going to try some of these distressed inks in my desert stand. I wanted to do some stamping, but I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to go with like neutrals and beiges or some of the blues to pull out. Excuse me. I'm going to replicate an idea that I saw Tracy Mercy Tierra here on YouTube do, and she used an embossing template for her tag there, and I decided to do that as well. I knew I wanted to stamp at the bottom, so I kept the bottom poked out so it wouldn't get the embossing design on it. And I'm going to use that old stamp set from Close to My Heart, and it's an antique set, and I'm using the words Friends Forever. So as I'm putting this page together, you'll see I'll start giving you a little bit of background on my Aunt Blanche. She lived with my grandmother for years, and I think she passed when I was 12 or 13 years old, but she was always a Southern belle. She was born and raised in Louisiana, and my Aunt Blanche's brother is my grandmother's father. And when my grandmother was just 5, she had a younger brother, Louis, and he was 2 or 3 years younger than she was. And my grandmother's mother, Noli, had back-to-back ear infections. And, you know, back then there was nothing to do for them. And it eventually, from the story I remember, the infections kind of worked their way to her brain, and she became daft and mentally ill, and eventually died from it. And the same happened to my grandmother's brother Louis when he was 16 or 17 years old. And my grandmother was telling me this story, and she said when she was 5 she saw this horse and carriage come, and it was kind of like, the ambulance, but it was also if someone passed, it was the same, horse and cart that would come for the bodies. So she saw it coming to her house, and she got very afraid, so she hid under the steps of the front porch. And so she saw them. Sorry, I'm getting teary. She said she watched them take her mom away. And so anyway, why am I crying? Because it's sad. And I'm mainly crying because my grandmother cried telling me the story. Even though she was in her 90s, she was very sad that she didn't, that she was afraid and she didn't hug her mother goodbye one more time. Anyway, so my grandmother's father didn't think that he could care for, a 5 and 2 or 3-year-old by himself. So he asked his sister, Blanche here, and her husband, Uncle Jap, to raise the children. And for some reason, they couldn't have children of their own, so they did. And so eventually they moved from Kinder, Louisiana to Oregon and opened up a grocery store and all that. And they also had like a tenant house and things like that. So basically, Aunt Blanche raised my grandmother and her brother until the same thing happened to her brother. Now, Aunt Blanche and my grandmother were all every morning before anybody saw them, they would come out and their hair was done and their makeup was on and they had pearls on. And that's just the way it was. You never saw them. Well, I take that back. Sometimes late at night when Aunt Blanche would come out for a glass of milk or something, her hair would be down and it was way past her hiney. Her hair was so long, but you never saw it down because she always had it up in this neat, perfect little bun. And she was just the teeniest thing, and I would love to sit in her rocking chair with her. And I don't know, she always just smelled so good. But, I never once did I see her in pants, never once did I see her without makeup on or anything like that. So, but this picture, these were two of her best friends. This was before she came to live with, so when they moved to Oregon, my grandmother eventually met my grandfather, obviously, and they got married and moved. But this was in Klamath Falls, where they did live when they moved to Oregon. And these were two of her very best friends. The woman in the middle was Mrs. Inslee, and the woman on the right was Miss Fuller. And so even when they came over for tea, which they did often, they were always dressed just like you see. So, and this dress that my Aunt Blanche is wearing, it's a red and white checkered, which I'm sure you could see in the picture when I first held it up. But on the back of this photo that I printed off, Aunt Blanche wrote, because she was sending this picture to my grandmother, that was the Christmas dress that her mother made her before she passed. So every Christmas she wore it because they were good friends, her and her sister-in-law, which was my grandmother's mother. So anyway, sorry about that. I decided, I had a lot of fun putting this together. As you watched me, I love the color combinations of the blue and the pale pink and the cream. I had stamped, as you saw, I had stamped the coffee stain stamp on that cream pattern background. And I had chalked everything with this knotted wood just to give it some dimension and depth. And I had decided to go ahead and use, I think this is a Martha Stewart punch, to punch the lace out on the other side of this blue one as well. And I just really, really love the feminine look that it gave this layout. And I'm just really, really happy with it. Aunt Blanche always carried a handkerchief, and it was always embroidered. She made it herself, or she got them as gifts. I think my grandmother might have made her some as well. But just that pretty little doily edge reminds me of that for some reason. And so I just thought that fit the page very nice. But I guess they would just come over and, drink tea and chit-chat. I never met them before. We would go to my grandma and grandpa's in Oregon every summer for 6 weeks. And like I said, Aunt Blanche had to come and live with my grandmother eventually. And I know my grandmother wouldn't have had it any other way. She eventually passed of cancer, though. And but just a very, very sweet Southern woman. But she did have a temper. I didn't see it often. I heard about it. I may have seen it once or twice, but yeah. So I had a lot of fun with some of these embellishments. I chose the number 3 many a time because it's the 3 of them, 3 friends. And I would just love to know back in the 70s, women their age, what they talked about. I wish I could be a fly on the wall and go back in time just to hear, they seem so prim and proper, but were they always so prim and proper? I don't, three girlfriends just sitting in a kitchen having tea. Who knows? I would love to know though myself, because I know how me and my girlfriends can talk. So that'll be, that would have been neat to know. But I'm really, really glad that I'm fortunate enough to have some of these original pictures, and they're easy enough to take back up and make copies for my siblings if they ever wanted any. I got them in a bag of pictures back. My mom had given us a bunch of family pictures, and I scrapbooked them here and there for my heritage album. And I think it's very important to put down the who, what, where, when. And I have that story that Grammy told me. I have that written down on paper that I will put with this album. So I was sure to get some information from my grandmother when I started scrapbooking, and I'm very, very glad I did. I just wish I would have known more from my dad's side. But he does have a sister that remembers quite a bit, and I have gotten a lot of information from her as well. And of course, gathering it from my dad and memories he's had of growing up as well. But it's very important to get that information while you can. And I'm always telling my kids story and sharing stories with them. So hopefully someone, one of those three will, keep up their tradition. Rachel does like to scrapbook. She doesn't have a lot of time because she's in college. Shelby can. She doesn't think she's good at it, but she's very creative. And, Carlton is Carlton. Life consists of baseball, girls, and eating, food, and living in his room. So at 16, I guess that's about all there is. Let me think. My aunt, like I said, her and Uncle Jap they had a tenant home, and that's actually how my grandmother and grandfather met. He was new in town. He had just, I don't know if you graduate from mortuary school. He wanted to be a doctor, but due to the Depression, he lost his money, through the banks or whatever, and he had an uncle who could only afford to put him through mortuary school. So my grandfather did that and moved to Klamath Falls for his first job and needed a room. And someone recommended my aunt and uncle's place. And my grandmother was cleaning one day, and she said there was a knock on the door, and her cleaning, she still looked absolutely gorgeous. She would still be in heels, dress, pearls, but I think she had a wrap on her head because she had her curlers in still, or her hair twisted and pinned, and she hadn't taken that down yet, but her face was done. But anyway, she answered the door, and she said, "I must have looked a fright." And how she said it was just so doggone cute. And I said, well, obviously you did not look a fright, because Gramps took the room and you two eventually got married. So anyway, yeah, my grandmother was just so cute and adorable. And the stories she tells, I just love them, love them, love them. So these rotary phones I thought were perfect to use because of the day. That was, I grew up with friends that had the rotary phone. We had the push button one, you picked up the handset and it was push buttons, and but I always thought that they were fun to use. My grandmother had the rotary phones, and I really wish someone would have kept one. I don't know. I'm sure you could probably still find them, of course, in antique stores or auctions or, estate sales maybe somewhere. It would just be neat to have one working in your house. But everybody's so tech savvy now with computers and cell phones and all that. But still, it'd be nice to have an old-fashioned phone in the house, I think. I ended up pulling out some of these wood veneers also that I bought a while ago for the pages I want to make of my parents from when they were traveling cross country when we were moving them here. I still have a ton of them because it came as a whole package. So I pulled out a couple sizes of a little house and the heart that came inside it, and decided to use those on there as well because they were at my aunt's house. And I think I fiddle around with these little embellishments for a while. The little pieces of blue that are tucked into the left side of that photo, those are the scraps that came out of the punch when I was giving it the doily edge on that blue piece of paper. So I've said in my earlier videos, way back in the beginning, I saved some of those pieces underneath and used them as kind of little accent pieces and stuff because the negatives from the punches make some pretty cool shapes sometimes. And I decided to keep the wood veneer plain. I didn't color it or anything because I felt like it went with that beige background paper. And I also felt it tied in with the tag as well. I really love that idea of embossing that tag, and then I stamped the Friends Forever down at the bottom and the desert sand ink, and then I edged it so it looks really old and worn. And here I'm just using a flare badge. Just has a heart. And what else was I doing? Oh, that was, and the pink number 3, that old rose card right there that I am inking up, I got from my Maggie Holmes ephemera pack. And I did get into that, but mostly everything else is from the Scraptastic kit. But I thought that fit perfect, and Blanche always had roses. My grandmother loved roses, and so I just had to put that on there. And it just looks the part, you know, it's aged, and it just looks like from that time period. My Aunt Blanche there, she was maybe 5 foot. But as she got older, you know how, you know, you shrink some, and osteoporosis and all this other stuff. She had to have been like 4'9", 4'10". She was the bittiest little thing and just so doggone cute. Loved her to pieces. So anyway, I'm going to do just a little bit of journaling. It was very hard to read the back of that card. A lot of it was because it was faded from time and such, but that's why I took the picture. I wanted just to keep that, but I'm just writing afternoon tea or something like that, and I wrote down the women's names and that it was in Klamath Falls, Oregon, and I just kept the journaling and the details very, very small. I didn't want to take away from the page too much, but I wanted people to understand who was in the photo. And yeah, I hope to get this up soon. It's been a couple of weeks since I've been able to post a video. I've been a traveling maniac, and I am going to do a lot of scrapbooking the next couple of days to get back in the groove and catch up. So I hope you enjoyed this page. This is a wonderful kit. I still have a lot of my April and this May kit to use, and I haven't even touched my June, so I need to catch up. But anyway, if you like this page, please comment and push the like button so YouTube knows, and I will talk to you later. Thanks for joining me. Have a good day. Bye.